It was a normal Thursday night at our home, which is tucked away on the outskirts of a large metropolis. Tom and I had become accustomed to our routine. Me, Nora, glued to my laptop, following the most recent stock and cryptocurrency movements, and him, after a hard day at his auto repair shop, relaxing on the couch with a beer. We chose this cozy two-story house because it promised a family and a future. But suddenly it seemed more like a battlefield for our increasingly different lifestyles. So how was the market today? Although Tom's tone was casual, I could feel the strain behind it. There will be ups and downs as usual. But crypto's looking good, I said, attempting to maintain harmony. Tom laughed and slammed his beer down a bit too hard. Crypto once more. Not everything that sparkles is gold, you know. I closed my laptop and groaned, preparing for the exchange we'd had a million times. Furthermore, even if you find value in mending cars, you do it even if they are not worth fixing. How come you don't see the benefit of what I'm doing? Nora, because automobiles are real. You may sell them, mend them, and touch them. You're acting recklessly by throwing our money in the air in the hopes that it will return with more. I sensed the rage rising, getting tired of the same old debate. Careless. No, Tom, it's not risky. It is planned. Gambling and investing are not the same thing. I wish you'd try to understand that, I said. Tom got to his feet, now pacing. Did you figure it out? Is it calculated to invest our hard-earned money in something as erratic as cryptocurrency? Yes, since I don't enter blindly, I do. I do my homework, I look at trends, and I make well-informed choices. It is identical to what you do with your store. My store is guaranteed to succeed, Nora. Automobile maintenance are always necessary. But this, it's only a phase. You know what happens when it crashes. Then what? Tom, any investment has the potential to lose money. The store may falter. We've seen nice returns on my investments, but nothing is certain. Isn't that something of value? Frustrated, Tom put down his pacing and ran a hand through his hair. Nora, it's more than simply the money. It has to do with security. About not squandering everything on a stupid coin toss. Why are we unable to grow the store and make more investments? That's a practical, actual strategy to increase our funds. We placed all of our eggs in one basket, right? Tom, what would happen to the store? Investing 101 states that diversification is essential. He shook his head, our differences of opinion as wide as ever. Of course, diversification. However, not into this. Digital fairy dust, but into something solid. I felt compelled to defend my decisions and my freedom, so I got up. You know, for someone who runs his own business, you're surprisingly close-minded. And you're surprisingly stubborn, he was quick to respond. What I'm trying to convey is that we might use that money to construct something long-lasting. Let's just agree to disagree, okay? Something we can see and touch, not just numbers on a screen. As usual, the conversation was stalling. Neither you nor I will criticize the way you operate your store or my assets. With a sigh, Tom let go of the battle. Fine, but just remember, Nora, when all this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you. The pressure in our lives was not limited to the conflict between Tom and myself. Complicating matters further were the dynamics of his family. We had to connect frequently because he lived near to his parents and sister, which served as a reminder of our divergent perspectives on duty and family. On a Sunday afternoon, Tom proposed that we go see his folks. Just thinking about it made my stomach turn. I didn't mind Tom's sister, Sarah, but not the parents. Her choices and way of life left me constantly perplexed. Come on, Nora. Mom has been inquiring about you and other things, and we haven't seen them in a long time. After observing my hesitancy, Tom persisted, "You know Dad is fighting cancer." I whispered, "Yeah, I bet Sarah's missed me too," so Tom might understand my cynicism. "Look, I know you two don't see eye to eye, but can't you just, I don't know, try for me?" I sighed in agreement. "Fine, but I'm not staying if she starts on one of her shopping spree stories." When we got there, Sarah was already there, showing off her newest high-end purse. I was immediately annoyed by her attitude of superiority, which was like a scent. "Take a look at this. I received it yesterday." Almost ignoring us, she said, "Isn't it fantastic?" "It's something," I said, gritting my teeth. Tom's mother invited us in without seeing the tension. "I'm so happy you were able to attend, Nora, sweetie. Both of you ought to come more frequently." Sarah dominated the discussion as the afternoon went on, sharing her most recent shopping and vacation experiences. I tried to maintain a straight face and spoke as little as possible, but I was becoming impatient. "So, Nora, still playing with your stocks and bits?" Sarah scoffed, contempt evident in her voice. "Sarah, that's called investing." I snapped back, my irritation showing. "You ought to give it a try sometime instead of wasting money on unnecessary items," I said. Tom shot me a warning look, but it was too late. "Investing? Please, like gambling on the internet is anything to brag about. At least when I spend my money, I have something to show for it. Something to show until it goes out of fashion next season." I retorted, unable to help myself. "That's enough, both of you," Tom's father interjected, his tone stern. "We're here to enjoy each other's company, not argue about whatever this is." The rest of the visit passed in an uncomfortable silence. As we left, Tom couldn't hold his frustration back. "Nora, why do you have to provoke her? Can't you just let it go for one afternoon?" "Me provoke her? She's the one who started it with her snide remarks. I'm just not going to sit there and take it, Tom. It's just, sometimes I wish you'd try a little harder for the sake of peace." "Try harder?" "Tom, I'm not the one splurging on luxuries and flaunting them in everyone's face. Why doesn't anyone tell her to stop acting like a spoiled brat?" "Because she's family, Nora. We look out for each other, even if we don't always agree with what they're doing." "That's just it, Tom. Looking out for each other is one thing, but enabling bad behavior is another." There's a reference, and it's about time someone pointed it out to her. Tom sighed, the weariness evident in his voice. I know. But what can we do? She's set in her ways, and Mom and Dad aren't going to change how they treat her. It's not just about Sarah, Tom. It's about us, too. How are we supposed to plan for our future when there's always going to be this financial black hole in your family? We'll figure it out, Nora. We always do." The news hit us hard and fast. Tom's dad, Mr. Harrison, had lost his battle with cancer. It felt like one moment we were discussing treatment options, and the next we were plunged into mourning. Amidst the shock and grief, Sarah, Tom's sister, took charge of the funeral arrangements. It wasn't long before she dropped a bombshell on us about the cost. Sitting in our living room, looking like a storm cloud had settled over his head, Tom relayed what Sarah had told him. "Nora, Sarah says the funeral's going to cost $60,000. She's expecting us to chip in half." I nearly choked on my tea. $60,000, Tom, that's insane. Are we funding a funeral or a royal wedding here? Tom's face darkened, his eyes narrowing. "Now's not the time, Nora. This isn't about the money." "It isn't about the money. It's about giving my dad the send-off he deserves. But $60,000? There has to be a mistake. It's too much." Tom's voice rose, and I could see the vein in his forehead starting to pulse. My dad has just died, Nora, and here you are haggling over pennies. What's wrong with you?" I flinched at his harshness. I'm not haggling, Tom. I'm just shocked. We never even spent that kind of money on our own house. Tom stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You know what? I don't need this. I don't need you telling me what's too much for my own father's funeral. If you can't see past your damn spreadsheets for once, maybe you should just stay out of it." The hurt from his words cut deep, but I swallowed my retort. This was grief talking, not my Tom. "I'm sorry, Tom. I'll transfer the $30,000 to Sarah. It's just, this is a lot to process." Tom paced the room, hands buried in his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd come to recognize over the years. "Yeah, well, it's not just about the money, Nora. It's about doing right by him. And if that means paying whatever it costs, then so be it." When I confirmed the transfer to Sarah, Tom barely acknowledged it, lost in his own world of grief and anger. The distance between us felt like miles, not the few feet of our living room. Walking into the funeral agency, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. The last few days had been a blur of grief and confusion, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to learn. "I'm here for Mr. Harrison's funeral," I announced to the woman behind the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her computer, her expression apologetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're a day late. Mr. Harrison was cremated yesterday." My heart stopped. "What? But how? I was told the funeral was today." She shook her head gently, her eyes full of sympathy. "The family requested to move the date forward. I'm very sorry for your loss and the confusion." I stood there dumbfounded, my mind racing. How could Tom not tell me? Why was I left in the dark about such a significant change? Fuming, I dialed Tom's number, my fingers shaking with anger and disbelief. "Tom, why the hell didn't you tell me the funeral was moved?" I just showed up like an idiot, only to find out I missed everything. Tom's voice was cold, detached. "Because I didn't think you cared. Nora, all you've done is complain about the costs and question every decision. Why would I think you'd want to be there? Because he was my father-in-law. Because I'm your wife. How could you just exclude me like that?" My voice cracked, a mixture of hurt and fury. "Well, maybe not for long," he shot back, and I could almost hear the bitterness seeping through the phone. "What's that supposed to mean?" I demanded, my heart sinking. "I'm done, Nora. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who's so indifferent. You're more concerned with your bitcoins and shares than with this family. I've got the divorce papers ready." His words were like a slap in the face. Divorce? Was he serious? "You're kidding, right? Over this, Tom. We can talk about it. We can work things out." "No, Nora. It's too late. The house is going up for sale. We'll split everything and go our separate ways." That's it. I was speechless. The reality of the situation crashed down on me. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. Stunned, I wandered back to the parking lot, where I saw Sarah pulling in, driving her new luxury car. The sight of it made my blood boil. "Nice car, Sarah. Where'd you get the money for this?" "Inheritance," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes as she tossed her hair back. "Yeah, something like that. Dad left me a little something." The casual way she mentioned her father, shopping bags in hand, and not a trace of sadness on her face, was infuriating. "A little something, huh? Looks like mourning is treating you pretty well." Sarah's smile faded, replaced by a smirk. "Well, we all grieve in our own ways, don't we? Some of us invest in stocks, and some of us in cars." I clenched my fists, the injustice of it all burning inside me. This was all wrong, Tom. I were falling apart, and here was Sarah benefiting from the chaos. Enjoy the car, Sarah. Looks like it cost a pretty penny, or should I say a pretty dollar. She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty parking lot. Oh, Nora, always so concerned about the money. Don't worry, it's all been taken care of. I watched her walk away, her laughter lingering in the air. The man I loved wanted nothing to do with me, and the family I had tried to be a part of was showing their true colors. The days following the funeral, visiting the funeral home felt like navigating through a thick fog of disbelief and betrayal. The weight of the divorce papers in my bag felt like carrying a boulder, a constant reminder of my crumbling marriage. But the sight of Sarah's new luxury car planted a seed of suspicion that I couldn't shake off. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I decided to pay a visit to the funeral home, hoping to uncover some answers. Walking into the funeral home, a mix of suspicion and determination fueled my steps. It felt surreal being here under these circumstances, but I needed answers. The place was quiet, the air filled with a solemnity fitting its purpose. At the reception, I recognized a face from the past. Jackie, a classmate from high school who'd ended up in the most unexpected of places. Jackie, I exclaimed, a bit too loudly for the setting. I didn't know you worked here. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face before recognition set in. Nora, wow, it's been ages. What brings you here? Something I can help with. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Yeah, actually, it's about my father-in-law's funeral. I heard it was arranged here. Jackie's expression turned professional, but there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Sure, let me pull up the details. Give me a sec. As she typed away, I fidgeted, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The moment she found the record, her brows furrowed. Okay, here it is. The service was pretty standard. Cremation was requested, keeping things on the simpler side. The total came to $5,000. My heart sank. $5,000? But that's not what we were told. We paid $60,000, or at least, we were led to believe that's what it cost. Jackie paused, her face a mask of concern. That's a huge difference. It was Sarah who handled the arrangements, right? Everything here was billed at $5,000, no more. The pieces were starting to fit together, a picture I didn't want to see. Can you print me a copy of that bill? I need proof. Sure thing, Jackie said, her tone sympathetic. She quickly printed out a duplicate of the check and handed it to me. Holding the paper, it felt like a piece of a puzzle that would unravel a bigger deception. Thanks, Jackie. I've got to sort this out. Armed with the printout from the funeral home, my next stop was confronting the family, particularly Sarah. The air felt heavy as I drove to my mother-in-law's house, where I knew they'd all be gathered, probably discussing the estate and the aftermath of the funeral. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and determination. When I arrived, the house was eerily quiet. I hesitated at the door, gathering my courage before stepping inside. The sound of my footsteps seemed to echo through the hallway, announcing my arrival. In the living room, Tom, Sarah, the funeral, and my mother-in-law were seated, looking like a picture of mourning that was about to be shattered. My mother-in-law, her eyes shadowed with grief, broke the silence first. Dear, we missed you yesterday at the funeral. We thought you'd be there. Taking a deep breath, I replied, I was told it was today. I'm so sorry for your loss. My voice was steady despite the churn of emotions inside me. I then turned to Tom. Can we talk in private? I hope to spare his mother any more distress. Tom's response cut through the room. No secrets here. You're not part of this family anymore. His words stung, but I pushed on, pulling up the check from the funeral home. Then explain this to me. The funeral cost $5,000, not the $60,000 Sarah claimed. Where did the rest go? Tom looked genuinely shocked, turning to Sarah with a bewildered, "What's this about?" Sarah squirmed under our gazes. I needed the money," she finally admitted, her voice small. The revelation seemed to hang in the air until Tom's mom, overhearing, added, "Your father saved for his own farewell." I even gave Sarah $10,000 more to cover everything. I did the math out loud, tension rising. $70,000 in total and only $5,000 spent. Sarah, where's the rest? Flustered, Sarah confessed to splurging the money on a new car for herself, her gaze darting away, unable to meet mine. I expected Tom to explode, but instead, he almost tenderly told Sarah, "You shouldn't have done that. Be more careful next time." His response floored me. Careful. She committed fraud, Tom, and you're okay with that. Tom's justification left me reeling. You wouldn't understand. You've got no family. You don't get what it means to stick together. That was the last straw. In front of them all, I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. Sarah, you owe me $30,000. Pay up, or I'm going to the police. Tom's protests followed me out the door, but I didn't look back. I'd seen enough, heard enough. The betrayal was complete, and so was my resolve. As I walked away, the finality of my actions settled in. There was no going back, only forward from here, away from the lies, and the deceit that had marred what I once thought of as family. Packing up my life into boxes felt surreal. Like I was an observer in my own story, the for sale sign outside the house was a stark reminder of the finality of it all. By afternoon, I was settling into a small apartment that felt more like a fresh start than a downgrade. That evening, as I was sorting through the remnants of my past life, my phone rang. Tom's name flashed on the screen, a name I no longer felt attached to. I answered, curiosity edging out resentment. "Nora, you need to back off." "Back off?" I laughed, cold and sharp. "Not a chance, Tom. She took from me, and I want it back. Your sister is a thief." Tom was silent for a moment. "She's family. You wouldn't understand." "Family?" I scoffed. "That ship has sailed, Tom. As far as I'm concerned, you and your sister are just people I used to know." He tried to argue, but I cut him off. "Save it. Sarah has 2 weeks to return my money, or I'm pressing charges. And you stay out of it. You're nothing to me now." Hanging up, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. The man I once loved was now just another obstacle in my path to reclaiming my life. 2 weeks later, a knock at my door heralded the return of my $330,000. Sarah stood there, her posture defiant, a sneer playing on her lips. "Here's your money," she spat, thrusting an envelope into my hands. "Happy now, you money-grubbing witch." I took the envelope, my gaze steady. "It's not about the money," I called out. "Sarah, it's about principle, about not letting you walk all over people." She laughed hollowly and bitterly. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." As she turned to leave, I called out, "Just remember, Sarah, karma's a real pain. What goes around comes around." Closing the door, I leaned against it, the envelope heavy in my hand. The money was a small victory, but the real win was standing up for myself, refusing to be a victim of their greed and lies. Life had found a new rhythm, calmer and more predictable. I paused when my phone suddenly called and showed a number I hadn't seen in a long time. It was Tom, a voice from a time in the past that I had carefully put aside. "Hey, please do me a favor." A large one. I didn't realize how worn out Tom's voice sounded. I hesitated, startled by the abruptness of the call. "A favor?" I inquired. Tom, we're past favors, don't you think? This is Sarah. This time, she's in deep. The Wolts are at the door, and debt is up to her eyes. Even after selling the house and the store, it's still insufficient. It took a while to process what he had said. You're phoning me, too. Why, Tom, I'm no longer with the circus. He let out a desperate sigh. Please stop acting that way. You left after making a lot of money trading. For the sake of the past, can't you spare something? What I was hearing was unbelievable. He still viewed me as their mess's lifeline in spite of everything. After she almost destroyed us with her lies, could you spare her something? Tom, you've got some guts. He said, it's not just for her. It's for everyone. Without me, you wouldn't be where you are now. Remember that. I let out a quick, piercing chuckle. I am not where I am because of you, but rather in spite of you. Do you believe I owe you? It's quite wealthy. There was a heavy, uneasy stillness on the line. So that's it. Are you planning to abandon us? Us. It's not us, Tom. It has been a while since there was. Regarding turning my back, I believe you mistook me for someone who is still concerned. As I hung up, I had a mixture of feelings, including relief and fury. I had finally put an end to that phase of my life. I realized how far I had come as I was sitting in the living room of my new home, which I had won with hard work and cunning. This was my haven, based on my perseverance and diligence, rather than the dubious foundation of dishonesty and deception.